We did phase 1, it's time for phase 2.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up, it's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror and he is no friend to me.
Hello everybody and welcome back to Pitch This here on the MrEliMac YouTube channel. I am your host, MrEliMac, and today we are continuing on the series of What If the DCEU Was the MEU, and I'm categorizing it as Phase 2 because this is sort of the start of the second part of this weird universe that has existed, and very much this is the continuation, sort of what happened after Justice League and sort of the fallout of what that original era of the DCEU was, because that first era was very focused on Zack Snyder's vision, and sort of starting in the second part is more of the Walter Hamada era of the DCEU, and yeah, that's the best way I can describe it. And I realize now, actually, looking at all of it, I did not include a TV show in it, so when we get to phase 3, I'll include that TV show, but don't worry about that, because right now we're just going to be talking about the movies that exist. So before I get into the pitches and the analogy, please be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. That way you can be up to date with all the videos I have here on the channel. Also, hit the notification bell. That way you can be notified whenever a new video like this comes your way. So first up, we're starting off with the Aquaman analog, which is Black Panther. I didn't really want to change it because when you look at the Aquaman movie itself, it very much is very similar to the Black Panther movie, but in more of the way of how Aquaman is more of the Killmonger character and portrayed more heroically, and Ocean Master was more of the Black Panther character and portrayed more villainously, and just anyway, that's the thing. But I'm very much doing that story, or okay, the best way I can describe it is the Black Panther MCU movie is this movie. That's very much the best way I can describe it. And instead of Nakia being the love interest, it's Okoye, because I just like Okoye, and I think honestly the main reason why it's Okoye is because I didn't want to reuse Nakia and use that character, so I just decided to make it Okoye in this one. Also, I didn't want to use Storm. I didn't want to use any of the X-Men characters in this version of the universe. I wanted to try to use different characters, and so yeah, that's why it's Okoye. And the best way I can describe sort of the story that I'm going with is, imagine if T'Challa said, I don't want to be the king of Wakanda, and T'Challa is very much forced to try to regain the mantle of king, even though he doesn't want to be the king of Wakanda, and Killmonger is the one that took the mantle of king, and that's sort of the story that we're going with. And T'Challa very much trying to learn how to regain his kingship and trying to regain what it means to be a king, and that's sort of the direction I'm going for this film. It's similar and has elements of what happens in the Black Panther MCU film, but I also wanted to try to add the moments and sort of the elements of Aquaman into this one. And in the way I just decided to do that was that T'Challa was hesitant to become king, and he doesn't really want to be the king. And so yeah, that's very much the Black Panther story. Killmonger is not killed at the end of the film. Unlike the MCU film, he would be placed in a Wakandan prison to very much continue with the theme of Ocean Master not being killed as well. And sort of the Black Manta character is more of Claw in this film, and so that's sort of the direction for that. But yeah, the Black Panther film that would be replacing Aquaman is very much just the Black Panther MCU film with elements that come from Aquaman. So yeah, that's the idea. And moving on from that one, it is the Shazam analog in the series, and for the Shazam analog, I decided to go with Doctor Strange, because Doctor Strange is a very magical character, and when I was looking up the Marvel Knights in the Marvel Ultimate Alliance video game, Doctor Strange was labeled as a Marvel Knights member, so I was like, okay, he works perfectly. And for this film, it's very much a traditional origin story for Doctor Strange, and instead of having Dormammu being the big threat, I think Dormammu is still involved in the film, but I very much wanted the main antagonist to be Baron Mordo, because in the Shazam film, the main antagonist is very much a traditional Shazam villain in Dr. Sivana, and for this one, I wanted a traditional Doctor Strange villain, and that's why Baron Mordo Zarko is sort of the main antagonist of the film, and some of the other characters that are in this film that sort of serve as the Shazam family and the Doctor Strange family is Wong, Jennifer Kale, Clea, Chandu, and Casey Kinmount. And they're sort of the members of the Doctor Strange mystical family that are in Kamar-Taj, that are trying to help Doctor Strange beat Baron Mordo and also beat Dormammu. I'm having Dormammu sort of serve the 7 deadly sins type of characters. The best way I can describe this movie now, actually thinking about it, if you've ever seen the animated Doctor Strange movie from 2007, if you've seen that, that's the movie, but adding more of a comedic flair to it and adding more humor to it, because Shazam is very much a more humorous comedic film, and that sort of, I wanted to add that sort of stuff. So think of the film, and also think of the Doctor Strange MCU origin film. Actually, now thinking about it, a lot of these are just, think of the MCU, but make it a little bit more lighter. And yeah, that's sort of the direction I'm going for the film. I know I'm not really adding any more new context and changing the story up at all, but for me, like for some of these characters, it's very obvious what story to go with for their first story, and yeah, that's sort of what I'm going with. But yeah, that is the Doctor Strange movie, the Shazam analog. Next up is the Birds of Prey analog. This one was a little fun for me, and also this movie is one of the reasons why I had Elektra be the Harley Quinn analog, because I knew exactly what I wanted the Birds of Prey movie to be. And the Birds of Prey movie analog is Daughters of the Dragon. Some of the two more traditional characters for Birds of Prey are Black Canary and Huntress. For Daughters of the Dragon, we have the 2 traditional Daughters of the Dragon, which are Misty Knight and Colleen Wing. Then we have the Harley Quinn in there, which is Elektra. And then we have the Renee Montoya character, who is Jessica Jones. And the Cassie Cain character is Angela Del Toro. And that's very much her character. And the main antagonist of the film would be Black Mariah. I wanted her to be that main antagonist, that mobster character. Originally, I think I had Diamondback, then I changed it up due to another film. So I decided to go with Black Mariah and have Shades sort of be the Victor Zsasz character. Imagine season 2 of Luke Cage, but instead of it being a Luke Cage series, it is a Daughters of the Dragon story with the team of Elektra, Colleen Wing, Misty Knight, Jessica Jones, and Angela Del Toro going up against Black Mariah and her sort of team. That's sort of the film that we're getting, and it's the team of the Daughters of the Dragon coming together and trying to defeat Black Mariah and take down her organization. That's the basic plot, similar to Birds of Prey, and it's Elektra trying her hardest to get out of the mind control of the Hand and getting away from the idea of being a mercenary and trying to join this team of heroes to get into that mindset. And yeah, that's the Daughters of the Dragon movie. I nearly said Birds of Prey. That is the Daughters of the Dragon movie. And now moving on to the Wonder Woman 1984 analog, which is Valkyrie 1972. Now, you may be wondering, why did I choose 1972 out of all the years? Why 1972? And it's because Valkyrie debuted in 1972, and so I wanted to have the year be significant to Valkyrie. And so the main antagonist of the film, the Maxwell Lord character, is a character named Artur Zarko, who is known as Zarko the Tomorrow Man, who is like, I think, a futuristic character, a futuristic villain for Thor. And so I thought, why not? He can be that character. I mean, we can just change his origin a little bit and change his backstory, and we can make it work in the 1972. We could even say, oh, he is a character from the 2000s that have gone back in time, and that is stuff that we can say. And the other Cheetah analog would be Lorelei, who is another antagonist of Thor's. And so Lorelei is someone that can manipulate men's minds. And so those are sort of the characters that are working together, that are trying to do their evil thing, and Valkyrie is the one that's trying to stop them. And one of the things that happens is that Jack Norris comes back somehow from being dead in 1942. He comes back, and he is back somehow. I don't know how exactly, but he just returns. Let's say Lorelei is able to bring him back from Valhalla to get Valkyrie to not bother them, but because of them doing evil things, Valkyrie has to stop the bad guys. And then ultimately it comes down to Valkyrie having to lead Jack Norris back into Valhalla to stop the big bads, and Jack even being like, hey, it's time for you to let me go. And then that leads to where we see Valkyrie in the 2000s, and then Valkyrie stops Lorelei and Zarko with a fight scene. Yeah, that's what happens. Look, Wonder Woman 1984 I consider to be an okay film, but I can understand why a lot of people don't like it. So it was very hard for me to think of a plot that could be like, oh, people can like this now. It was very hard. And I'm just thinking of of the basic plot of Zarko is trying to manipulate the timeline to fit what he wants, and it's up to Valkyrie to stop him from doing that. And the way that hinders her is Lorelei bringing Jack Norris back from Valhalla, and Jack Norris ultimately saying, no, you gotta let me go. And that's what leads to this plot. So there you go. That is Valkyrie 1984. And now for the last one I'm going to talk about. And this is one where you all may be like, Eli, why are you talking about this? You don't need to be talking about this. Well, look, I thought it was best to talk about this. So the next one I'm going to be doing is the analog to Zack Snyder's Justice League, which is Zack Snyder's Marvel Knights. And the reason why I decided to bring this one up is because of how different Zack Snyder's Justice League and Justice League is. Because in Zack Snyder's Justice League, it's a little bit more evident that Steppenwolf is working with Darkseid, and it has a lot more Darkseid stuff involved. Whereas in the first one, it's like Steppenwolf is working for Darkseid, but he's also not fleshed out, and a lot of other characters aren't fleshed out. So that's why I'm bringing this up, to be like, oh, Zack Snyder's Marvel Knights is actually very different. And instead of it being a clone of Spider-Man that died, it was actually Peter Parker, and they're trying to find a way to revive him, and the way they revive him is through a meteor that fell out of the sky that has a symbiote that has revival abilities. And so this symbiote they put on Peter Parker, and he is revived. He comes back to life miraculously, and instead of wearing the red and blue suit, he is wearing the black and white suit, the Venom symbiote suit. And that's the suit where it's like Zack Snyder would have said, oh, I really like him in the black and white suit. I'm not a big fan of the red and blue, so I just wanted to put him in the black and white suit, and he was originally going to wear that, and that would have been a discussion that would have been had. We would have seen more Luke Cage stuff. We would have fleshed his character out a little bit more. We would have hinted at the fact that the Enchantress and Thor dealt with some facets of life that would have been affecting the past that Max Dillon, aka Electro, is using to help facilitate Wilson Fisk in the future to be the big bad. We would have hinted at the Hand being a major threat that is helping Wilson Fisk in the future. We would have fully set up Kingpin to be a big threat in the future for like this Marvel Knights saga, with the Hand being like the main hench people, sort of like how the Apocalypse was like their main henchman for Darkseid. Kingpin's main henchman would have been the Hand, and we would have seen other characters like Shang-Chi, who would have been sort of like the Ryan Choi analog. We would have seen him and see how he's connected to all of this. We would have seen more stuff with Iron Fist, with Black Panther. We would have seen Daredevil and Valkyrie have more of a tete-a-tete with each other. We would have fleshed out the story a bit more, and we would have fleshed out Spider-Man having to deal with the fact of, oh, I died, and now I'm back. I don't know what to do anymore. And like sort of those sort of stuff with the stuff that we didn't do in the original Marvel Knights, the Joss Whedon version of Marvel Knights. And yeah, like I wanted to make this a fact of, this is ending the second phase of the MEU, sort of like how you can look at Zack Snyder's Justice League as the ending of phase 2 of the DCEU. And so that's sort of what I wanted to do with this, because the next phase sort of starts on a more chipper note and a more R-rated note. And yeah, that's sort of how I want it to end this video, the MEU phase 2. But yeah, I know a lot of these plots weren't very well thought out or fully thought out, and a lot of these were just like, oh, they're the MCU movies, but slightly different. And it's because that the MCU version of these movies, like Doctor Strange and Black Panther, were pretty well done already. They just would need to be tweaked a little bit to fit this universe and to fit the movies that they're the analogs of. I know some of it may seem like a cop-out, but I promise next time we will, at least in the phase 3 of it all, the final part of this what if the DCEU was the MEU, the next part will have a little bit more originality, because some of the characters I'm going to be bringing up haven't been talked about yet. And so yeah, what were your thoughts on this phase? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Were you indifferent to it? Whatever your thoughts, post them in the comments down below, and also to some of the comments that are asking about if I'm going to be doing any Elseworld stories of, oh, what if these Elseworld movies were Marvel? I'm considering it. I'm sort of mentally making notes of what they could be, so don't worry, I will probably get to them eventually. But yeah, until next time, I've been Mr. EliMac, you've been the audience, and I hope you all remember to have a great rest of the day.